Hello everyone, Irene Krause of Krause Creations finally back with you after a very prolonged absence. Well, let's just say life gets away with you at times. If anyone's more interested in what other things that's been going on, by all means check my website. Find the link down below because I've been rebuilding that, and look at the for a status update in the blog section. Anyway, what I'm doing in this video today is what I would consider a beginner topic. Obviously, everything I'm saying is going to be of interest to the beginners, but there's also going to be things I'm going to be talking about for those of us that have nerve issues or other chronic conditions that influence how you use your hands and things like that, and try to some ideas hopefully that it's going to make your life a little bit easier. Now, when I started working with beading, oh God, it had to be something like 12 or 15 years ago. It was a very, very long time ago, let's put it this way. It was just after I'd already gone through my chemo and everything for my cancer. I was in my recovery, and well, I was a little down everything because I was at that time, this was about, several months after the diagnosis and the surgeries and all that, and I started to realize just how bad the chemo and everything had damaged my body, and that I was not going to be able to do the things that I was used to doing with my life, and I had to change things. So I started looking around for what am I going to do with myself, because there's so many things that I simply can't do anymore that I'm used to doing. And I was working with a wonderful art therapist at the time at the Cleveland Clinic's, well, that's what it's called now, is the Cleveland Clinic's Cancer Center. And Dawn was a wonderful person, and she encouraged me to do something that was creative, because of course once you start doing things creative, you start feeling better about things. And well, the thing is, I had along, as I had said before, I've been doing arts and crafts and needlework and all this and everything, painting and so on and so forth, so for so many years. I just didn't feel motivated to do any of those things again, and she was the one that had suggested, well, she says, Irene, have you ever tried doing any kind of jewelry making? And I said, well, no, I don't think I've ever done that. So she pulled out some magazines and some books on beading, and sort of piqued my interest, because I was looking at those designs, and oh, they were so pretty, very pretty. And of course then I very quickly realized, didn't take me very much longer, once I started pricing out, I mean, don't get me wrong, they were gorgeous. Was it Bead and Button, and I can't remember, Beadaholic, all the different magazines. They were gorgeous projects, gorgeous. But when I started adding up the prices for the beads and everything, darn near everyone, if you added up the cost of all the beads and everything, the exact ones that they were using for the given project, you were going to have to be spending anything from $70 up to well past $100 just to do, like, for example, one necklace. Or you could get away with less for like a bracelet or something like that, but still. That's when eventually I hit upon using polymer clay, and been a pretty happy camper ever since. But okay, moving on to what we want to talk about here. You're going to see at some point in time, you're going to see an outline where I'm going to talk about the different topics that I'll be covering in this video. I doubt I'm going to get all of them covered, especially if I'm going to keep yakking like I've been. I'll get them covered in this one video. I will put together, so I will have to split them up probably into more than one. I'm not sure right now. I'm just going to start talking about it, and then I'll edit them together, and hopefully they'll make better sense and everything once you get to see them. But as I said, our topic for this one is going to be beading. And I'm going to start with that. Now, I'm having problems with this camera. It keeps wanting to, it's having problems with focusing on things. So I have to watch it to make sure it has something to focus on here, or else it's going to start doing this jerking. The focus thing is going to keep trying to focus, and it's not going to have the right thing to focus. Well, anyway, what I started out with back when, like I said, this was 12, 15 years ago, whatever it was, I took an old terry cloth towel, dishcloth, and I thought, because, well, you know, if you put your beads down on a table, they're going to roll all over, and of course, knowing if you're anything like me, more than half of them are going to end up on the floor, and you're going to be scrounging around on the floor for your beads that you just bought, and that's no fun. So I knew that I had to have a better surface, and that's what I'm calling this segment, surface. I needed to have a better surface of some sort to actually put my beads on while I was working with them. So the first thing I hit upon was, like I said, a terry cloth dish towel. And because I thought, well, the nap wasn't that tall, but when I started actually putting the beads out there, well, these size 6 seed beads weren't, I could still find them in the terry cloth. But when I started laying out like these size 11 seed beads, or especially these little size 15 seed beads, well, I challenge anybody to find those inside a terry cloth dish towel. They're just really super tiny. You're not going to find them. So I decided to put my thinking cap on, and the first thing I did was, well, I had an old t-shirt. I cut it up, and I knew that just the fabric of the t-shirt itself was going to be too flat. It had absolutely no resiliency, which is almost as bad as working like this here on the flat of a table. So what I did, though, is I laid that piece of fabric over the top of the terry cloth. So the terry cloth gave it the resiliency, but the tight weave of the t-shirt fabric, it was some sort of a knit, cotton, polyester, something like that. It was so small that, of course, the beads could not pass through it, and they stayed up there. And of course, it made it much easier for me to, you know, chase those beads around, get them on my needle and so forth, and string them and do the things that I wanted to do. And that I used, oh gosh, well, it was well over a year, might even have been 2. It was quite a while. I used them for that that little made-up thing. But then I tend to go, when I'm in the store, I always want to go check out the discount section or the clearance section, whatever it is that given store tends to call it. And of course, I'm always looking for beads. And one of those times in the visit there, I happened to pass and I saw these things that were called bead mats. Now, this was the color of the first one that I bought. It's not this size. It was actually quite a bit bigger. It was quite reasonably priced. It was under $5, I'm pretty sure. But like I said, that was quite a few years ago. I don't know if you can get one that cheap. This set here that I just bought probably a few months back, because I'll put a link to her video down below in the description. She does the Friday Findings videos, and this was one she did a few months back, which was on, she had a link there for where you could buy this set of 3 bead mats. They were extremely cheap. I think they were, I know they were definitely under $10 when I bought them. Hopefully that's the same price. But anyway, you take, because they're about a little bit bigger maybe than an 8 by 10 or 11 inch, about the same size as a piece of US paper, letter paper, but maybe a little bigger, but not by much. But anyway, you cut them in half this way, and she explains what sort of glue you have to use, and of course how to get your markings in here. And because I were 3 in the package that I got, which was wonderful, I was able to make two different ones with the things, I don't know what you want to call these, in different sizes. And I had something else I've used for many years, which I will show you when we get into the storage section. But this has been wonderful. And this would be a very, very economical way for someone to get something like that, but extremely cheaply. And believe me, this helps you keep your beads organized so that they're separated and they're not rolling all over the place. And yes, you could pick them up. So that would be something that I would definitely very strongly recommend to anyone that's new to beading. Is definitely get some sort of a beading surface, beading mat, and do check out that video, because like I said, this thing is a mind saver. I wish I'd known about that 10 or 15 years ago, but I didn't. Anyway,
I'm also going to refer you, and I'll just show you a quick picture of it. Susan of Turtle Soup Beads just recently posted a video on making your own, well, I'm not sure exactly what you want to call it, depending, it's a bead board, a bead, it's something for working with beads, and it's one you can make yourself out of very inexpensive materials, and probably things, most of them, that you're going to have around the house. And I strongly recommend you check that out.
moving on to the next section, which I guess you would call this picking things up or something like that. Because once you have your beads down on your mat and you're done with your project, at some point in time you're going to need to put your beads away. Now, whether you choose to put them, again, I'm not going to get into too much on the subject of storage, but those of you that are beginners, if you get your beads in some sort of a container like this, it is easy to get them back into this container. Well, it's not easy on your own to get them into the container, but that's one way to store your beads so that they're organized. If you get them in something like this, which is just a little tiny Ziploc bag, or this one, which I haven't even opened this up, because that's this, when I buy beads, like I said, I tend to check out the clearance section. I'm always looking for and finding wonderful beads. And I got a box back here, which, well, there's the lid for it right there. I stuff them in there until I'm ready to use them, because this one, for example, this is in a plastic bag that's inside this packaging. I doubt that this has got like a Ziploc seal on it or anything like that. It's probably just a bag that someone's dumped these beads into. This is a mixture type. There's well, I could see that there's some size 11 rounds, there's some bugle beads in a couple of different sizes, there's some hex beads in there. They're all red, one color or another of red. Some of them are sort of color shifty kind of thing, but they're all red. But they're very pretty, and I got that for, I think, like $1 from Fire Mountain Gems when I did an order with them recently. And I mean, all those beads for $1, I mean, can't go wrong, you know. But anyway, when I open this up, I doubt I'll be able to keep them in the plastic bag because it won't be sealing. So I'm going to have to put them into some sort of storage container of some sort. But how are you going to get the beads off your beading surface, whatever that is, if it's this or, you know, just a plain black beading mat, whatever it is that you're using for your beads, how are you going to get them up from that surface and back into some container of some sort? Well, there's obviously more than one way to do that. I'll show you two that I have used. The first one that I relied upon was, this was a tweezers. And I don't remember if I got this along with something else that I had purchased. It might have been some jewelry tools or something like that. But the tweezers have on the end of it this little scoop, as you can see. And yes, I've had this obviously for several years, and you could see that it's kind of gotten bent a bit over the years, as I've abused it over the years. But this works pretty well. But I saw one time this little gizzy. And again, I don't know what the names for these things are. I've had them for so many years. I really don't know who makes it. It's a little stainless steel. It's not really a half circle. It's less than a half a circle, but it's rounded and it has a little tip on the end. And this makes it very easy for me to sort my beads if they've gotten mixed up together, which they always seem to do no matter what I do. It helps me to separate them easily, and then I can use this to scoop up quite a few of them, or just a few, and move them around, even with my trimmer and everything. I really love this tool, and I wish I know who made it or how much it cost me. It was very inexpensive again, but I love it. Okay. That's going to be it for picking your beads up and getting them back into some sort of storage container. Let's move on to the subject of beads themselves. As you could see from this, beads they're sold in all sorts of shapes and sizes and types, and, well, you could just imagine. These are the size 6 seed beads. This is a mixture one. Aren't those pretty? Those are greens. They're called, this one's called, I can't read those. Peppermint. Okay. It's called peppermint. It's from Czech glass beads. But you could see there's a couple of different colors of greens in there, and even they're just pretty. And that would look really gorgeous in something. But that's what I do when I bring my beads home, is I put them in this big container here, and they sit there until I'm ready to use them in something, because after all, they're in something, they're not going anywhere, and they're not even with these loose ones that are on the strands, they're not going to get mixed up with other things, and they could stay in there until I actually go about using them. And then, if need be, I'll figure out some sort of other storage mechanism for them or something. Like I said, I'll get into that more in my storage section. Anyway, these are rounds here. These are Toho beads, and they are rounds. Now, these come from the Ming tree, whoever that is. And again, these are size 11. These are made in China. And okay, that's the next thing I need to talk about, is the different manufacturers or grades, if you will, of beads. They're basically what I would call two different types. You have these, like the Toho beads here and these here, which are very uniform in size, in that, you know, if you go through this, you might find like 1 or 2 defective beads, but for the most part, all of them are going to be the same size as each other. They're all going to have the same size and consistent holes and the same shape. Whereas if you buy something, let me see if I can find one. Well, I know this would be an example, which is a loose strand of beads, but let me see if I can find one that's, yeah, here's one I picked up at Walmart ages ago. This was, well, similar to the type like you would get like in a dollar store or something like that. I mean, they're great beads. They are great beads. But the thing is, they're not very consistent in size or even shape. They're generally, probably 95% of them are quite similar in size. But you're always going to run into, out of every 10 or 15, you're going to run into that one that's may not have a hole in it, or it may be a really weird shape, or it could even be 2 of them stuck together, so they're double size. So that's why these type of beads, the cheaper ones, are not favored by those who make and sell jewelry, because Well, it's the difficulty of working with an inconsistent size of bead. But then these things have their uses. They're wonderful in crafting projects for like making Christmas ornaments. They're also wonderful in bead embroidery because sometimes, for example, well, this one I know I've just started, so it's not very far along. When you're doing your bead embroidery and you're trying to do all this fill-in area around the main components of what you're stitching down, sometimes you may want that little tiny bead just so you could get it into that spot, whereas a normal sized bead of that type might not want to fit in there. And you're going to hear more about this project shortly. We'll get into that another day. But anyway, this is my favorite way of buying cheaper beads. These are size 11s, and yes, they're all strung on strands of some sort of fishing line. And the biggest reason why, number one, is the quantity. As you could see, you get so many beads for such a cheap price. But the thing is, they're also strung, so I know that they all at least have holes in them. And if you're doing them in beading or something like that, you want them to have holes in them. So that's one of the reasons why I really like these. And like I said, now I'll probably run into one or so here every so often that's kind of a weird looking bead, but there's nothing wrong with that. You could find uses for some of those then as well. Now I haven't opened these up to try them, so I don't know how consistent they are in sizes. I'll find out when I do get them open. These come from China, so I don't know the Ming tree. I don't know who that is, but hopefully that'll be fine. Beads also come in a variety of different types. These are all glass beads that you see here. These are actually freshwater pearls that were, again, made in China. Again, this was another one of my buys here recently from Fire Mountain Gems. They're very, very pretty. But freshwater pearls, they do have little inconsistencies in their sizes. So again, depending upon the kind of project that you're doing, that may not be the type of bead that you would want to use in that. Instead, you may want to get something like this, which is known, this is a round white pearl. These are very, very consistent in size and in shape. So again, it all depends upon the project that you're doing as to what kind of beads you want to use. And then of course you get into crystals. And oh my goodness, let me just pull out a few of the crystals I could see here. Crystals, again, are often sold on strands or in little packages. This one, I believe, is some Swarovski. Yeah, that's Swarovski. Very, very pretty. This one's not Swarovski, but it is, well, it says it comes from Darcy, but those are rondelles, I believe. Yeah, called black diamond, 4 millimeters by 6 millimeters. So in other words, they're a little rounder than they are tall, but very pretty. I'm not going to dive into my box too far here to show you too many of the others. I mean, there's duos, the ones, they're glass beads, but they have 2 holes in them. All right, let me bring it over here and see if I can find some duos to show you, because I know I've got several of them in here. Now those are more 11s. Now there's a, those look like those are rondelles. Those are more straightforward rondelle types. As you could see, that's a crystal. Oh, there's some duals right there. And you can see in the packaging that it has the 2 holes on there. These are from Czechoslovakia. And these are called opaque mauve pearl. Again, very, very pretty, but they have 2 holes in them. Let me put it down, and then I can zoom in on it and show you that, yes, they have 2 holes in one side of the bead, going over to 1 hole on the other side, which makes for a sort of a oddly shaped bead, but it then can lend itself to some very interesting designs. And anyway, that's enough for that. You also have your, these are not cubes exactly. Let me put that down again so I can zoom in on it, because they have a singular hole instead of two. Some cube beads have 2 holes in them, some of them only have 1. That one there is a flatter style square hole. Now, I don't know if that one's going to show up. This is a more squarish shaped one. Where's, yeah, those are crystals. I have so many beads in here. Now, there we go. There's some beads, and those are interesting. You can see these are more squarish. See, these are more rectangularish. Like I said, you have got an endless amount of bead types, and that's what adds interest to your design, whatever it is that you're making. You could have a ball with it. And yes, about any color that you want under the sun, from plain glass, translucent, transparent, metallic finishes. It's just color shifting, like these are color shifting crystals. I mean, you could just have so much fun with this stuff and go on and on. And yes, you could spend a minor fortune. And believe me, this one did probably cost me a pretty penny. But then you got to remember, this collection here I've accumulated over quite a few years. And that I just bought these, in fact, to go with that, because these are, that's what I ordered, went to order from Fire Mountain Gems. These are a teal colored, they're duotone colored. They're teal on one half, and then they're a plum color on the other side, which I think is going to go really make that pop. Yeah, this is a one of the polymer clay projects that I had started on in one of my earlier videos. It's the acrylic pour skin was in there, and when I was in the process of trying to put my bail on this, which was supposed to be the pendant, these were going to be the earrings originally, I broke the tip of the polymer clay off. Well, I was upset. And I had to think to myself, what am I going to do? Because these are just so pretty. I don't want to throw them away. And I decided, well, maybe if I do a bead project with it, I can salvage them. I still don't know if it's going to work, but I will record it, me trying, and you'll see that video another day. There, now I got my stuff all stuck back pretty much in the box, with the exception of those that I'm going to use. And yeah, that's more beads over there for yet another project. I got about 3 different projects sort of sitting around here on my table. Let me put my lid back on this and seal it up so I don't spill them all over the place. Okay, enough on the topic of beads themselves. Suffice to say, you can get them in all different sizes and qualities and price ranges as well. So you have to decide what you're willing to spend on your budget when it gets to your projects. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. I think we'll start on the topic of storage because I've got a few things right here that I can bring up and show you. But I may not be able to get it all done here today. We'll see. Okay, where am I at here? Oh, about 30-minute marks. Okay. Well, okay. This, you've already seen some of these. Like this one here, once I open this up, I will have to put these into some other sort of storage container. Because this particular, it looks like it might be able to close, but I don't know if I would trust it. Which is actually what I ran into with this. This was a very inexpensive box that I had bought. I bought it because I saw this type of latch on it, and generally this type of latch fastens down quite well so that the thing doesn't pop open on you. But in this case, it was a very cheap one, and no, it doesn't fasten down on there. So, but this one, well, at the very least, no, these are loose too. Well, you see how this these lift out? That means that your things, well, let me pull up this one to show you. This is, this is where I've been putting a lot of my findings in. Some of them are ones I've made myself, and now I've got the hiccups again. Get a drink here. Now this has what I said I look for. This type of latch. Because this means it's going to clamp together and it won't pop open so easily. So that's one of the first things I look for. Now, one of the other things I bought early on was, well, it was all these little crystal, these little plastic vials like things, and it was inside a larger container. Now, don't get me wrong, these screw together very nicely. They keep everything shut, but this is a very, very small container. Even one of those size 11 type seed beads, you will never get them all inside this thing. This was another one. Like I said, I have these things left over here and there. Again, this looks sort of like an old Tic Tac container. And yes, they open up and it seals nicely, but then this top lid here, I found over time these pop out and pop loose, so I didn't care for that one. I didn't care for this one because it was so small. This one, which I bought with the idea of storing all of my different bindings in that I've been buying, and I didn't know until it arrived that it was the kind where you've got to put all these little dividers in, just like that other one that I showed you previously. I do not like this type of storage container for my beads or my findings or anything. If you look down in here, you can already see that some of these findings have not stayed in their compartment. They're migrating around, especially like these head pins and stuff like that. They're migrating around and moving wherever it is that they want to go to. And the whole idea of putting them in here was to keep them so they're separated, so I know, well, okay, here's my copper colored fish hooks, and here's my copper colored jump rings, and my silver colored ones, and so forth. Well, they're not staying in their compartments. They're kind of getting all messed up and moving together, so it's very frustrating. There's my gold colored fish ear hooks, and so forth. And it isn't the only thing. It doesn't happen just with bees. It happens with finding. It happens with any kind of small object. It's very, very frustrating. In fact, let me show you that. Close this here. At least they stay inside the container. I have to say that much. Which is why haven't found something. I bought another one storage thing, but it turned out to be pretty much the same sort of thing. This is some of my latest goodies that have arrived. Let me get down here to where, you see there's another one I'm having problems with. Now this was, oh, there's some more beads. I put that in that other box. They ended up in the wrong box. Okay. Here, let me get this, if I can get them down there. There's some other ones. This is all nail art stuff, sequins and so on and so forth. And this was one I bought. And it came, I really look for those that come in their own storage containers, thinking, well, you know, the manufacturer put it together so it was going to stay inside the container that I bought, that came in, right? Wrong. I don't know if you could see this, but all of the little this is all holographic glitters in different shapes, and they're all over the inside of this box. I don't know if you could see them here. I could certainly see them. I'll zoom in on it so hopefully you could see that. But I did one thing smart at least. Now here, see, there's some there on the table. They're getting to be all over the place. They're like glitter. You know how glitter is. Glitter goes everywhere. And that's exactly what's going on with these. Let me see if I can't get some of these back in here. But they're not staying in their containers. And that is, obviously I'm going to be losing quite a bit of it. And this isn't the best of containers that I've got it in. I actually thought I would be just using this to store them so that I knew, okay, these are all these sequins and things that I bought for nail art. I hadn't originally thought, because that's what I mean, I was leaving them in the original containers they came to me in. And there's another one. And but at least I'm glad that I did put them in there. At least they're not going everywhere. But oh geez, there they are. They're all over there. Oh, I can't chase all of them all over the place. They're just going everywhere. And I'm very disappointed in it because these things are not exactly cheap. But if they won't stay in their containers, then, you know, I'm wasting what I paid for, which is quite irritating. So, get all those back in there, at least as many of them as I can. And I don't know what to do about them because the static electricity is making them stick all over on the inside of this container. I don't know, maybe if I try rubbing them down with something I can get them to pop loose. But I'm afraid that if I fuss around with it too much, I'm just going to end up losing more and more of them. And I haven't even had a chance to use them in anything yet. Pretty frustrating. Okay, that's some of the kind of storage types that I do not like. Let me put these back over here now. Let's talk about some of the storage types that I do like and why. Now, this is one that I bought. Hold on. Oops. And I knocked the camera over. Let me see, make sure this is okay. This is one I bought, oh Lord, this is probably back like 10 or 15 years ago. Actually has Some old wire wrapping projects. That's a wooden bead there in the middle I did. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I don't want to take them back apart. They're too pretty. But anyway, this is great for larger sized beads. And it's great because also they're not, you know, these little dividers and everything don't come out. So in other words, when you put something into a container, they stay shut. And thankfully, this one only snaps shut, but it seals very, very nicely. Like I said, I've had this probably 10 or 15 years. These are, again, fairly inexpensive. So this would be an excellent type of storage container, particularly as long as you didn't try to put like seed beads in there or something like that. The tinier ones would work very well for most people. So that's enough for that. Now, what would I put my seed beads into? I'm glad you asked. Let me hold on, and I'm going to have to grab my camera here. Okay, this is one I just bought here recently. Let me get out one of my ones that's got beads in it. I'll have to put the name of the company that makes this system. Bead Storage Solution. Let's see if I can't get that on camera, can I? There we go. It's down here. They sell them there on Amazon, and they used to have them in pack-a-tans. But anyway, they sell them in a couple of different forms. You can buy, for example, the empty overall container, and you can buy these different little storage compartment things separately. So you decide, for example, if you're storing larger beads, then maybe you want to get the bigger containers, or maybe you want the medium-sized ones, or maybe you want the little tiny ones. Let me pop this open. And this one actually has some of the bigger size beads that I would call these the size 6s and 8s, and well, there's some spacers, there's square ones, and so on and so forth. There's some strung size 6 beads as well as there. I stuffed them all down in there. These are some mixes that there's actually some size 11s and might even be some 15s in there. That might be, for example, it could have been a failed project, something that might have been, because I know I was doing some, what is it you call it? Oh, I can't remember the name for it. It was a weaving thing with cording and that, and I was experimenting around with it. I just got too frustrated with it. It was taking me way too long. Don't get me wrong, they were very pretty. It was on a loom, and I really, and I'll look up the name and I'll put it in there on the screen for you. I really enjoyed it insofar as how it was looking, but it was just taking me forever to make any length of cord, and I just didn't see continuing with it after I'd experimented around with it probably for close to a year. And like I said, it's not that I didn't enjoy it, I did, but it was taking me so long to finish anything, especially if I was trying to do like a complicated bead weaving pattern, you know, to get things to go in certain ways. I decided that it really wasn't for me. It was just taking too long. So there was probably 2 or 3 projects at that time that they weren't anywhere near close enough to be finished. I basically took them apart, and rather than sit there and separate all the beads out, I just dumped them in a container and move on with my life. It's too short to fuss around with things. Besides that, it is a pretty mix of colors, other than maybe the red. I might take the red out of there, but other than that, I mean, it's got all these teals and turquoises and golds and whites and blacks and I don't know about the reds, but other than that, oh, there's some copper in there too. But anyway, it's a nice pretty mix of colors. I'll think of something to do with it sometime. Maybe throw it into a bracelet or something like that. This is a mixture of pinks. Now some of these came this way in a mix like this, and other ones are mixes that I've made. Here's a bunch of crystals that I bought, oh lordy, ages and ages ago. And those look like those are, I think those are like 8 or 10 millimeters. I'm not sure. I'd have to get out my scale. These are some pearls I bought. Again, very, very pretty. A mixture of greens there. Very pretty. But again, I put them in here, well, because these latch down like this, if you can see that. So they stay shut and everything stays in there very, very well. Like I said, I've had, whatever one of this is the first one I bought, I've had that probably for 6 or 7 years. And these things, they're just incredible. I love them. But anyway, eventually I'm going to get these sorted by color so that, but right now they're all just kind of sitting in here. But anyway, this is my preferred method of storing all of my seed beads. That is, when they've been opened and in use. Because, you know, I could put the smaller ones, those happen to be some crystals, but, you know, I could put the smaller seed beads. This would hold a whole one of those Toho like seeds. That would hold that whole thing in there. I don't know about those Ming tree ones. Those are a little bit bigger, but definitely would hold the Toho ones and so forth. But the size 6 ones and 8s, I might have to go with the mediums. But anyway, this is what I prefer. Now, moving on beyond the subject of storage. Let me put these away. Well, hopefully that's cleaner than it was. This is another one. It's the exact same size and dimensions as the other containers sold by Bead Storage Solutions, but this is a designer box, as they call it. At least I think that's what they called it. Let's see if it's... No, it's... Well, this is one I've had for quite a few years. Now, I have some very severe neurological things going on with my hands, with the tremors and that. And this has been a lifesaver. Let me open it up. And it comes with this little foam piece that sits there on top. And this is actually one of those weaving patterns I was talking about that I printed out. As you could see, I was trying to follow it. Didn't work out too well, like I said. And this is some remnants of those. I haven't finished taking all the beads out of there. I'll get to it one of these days. Anyway, let me get this out of here, because this is what I wanted to show you, was this designer board. Because that's what, you can buy these designer boards separately. Let me just dump my beads out in here. And I got a few on the floor, but not too many. I'm not going to weep over them. Anyway. This is what they call their work in progress design board. Now you can buy these sort of things separately. Now me, I've discovered that I tend to be a fly by the seat of my pants kind of a designer. I mean, I will take a bunch of beads out that I think look good together, and then I will just start stringing them until I come up with something that I like. Very, very rarely will I actually sit there and use a design board like this to very precisely plan how, this is for a necklace obviously, how a necklace would then go together, because I'm using usually a mixture of polymer clay, glass beads, crystals, pearls, all those different things, sometimes metal elements, all those things mixed in together. And for one thing, sometimes they're not small enough to fit down in the little slot that's here on the design board nicely, because I think this is meant for someone using the smaller beads and things like that. Not that it's, like I said, not that it's a bad thing to have or use, because this is the part that's actually been the lifesaver for me. Well, is, like I said, as you saw when I opened it up, I had this put in there upside down, and I put all my beads in there, and this way, as I'm working on things, they can't go flying off across the table and end up on the floor. And there's a peyote switch thing that I started taking apart there. Like I said, there's all these little bits and pieces. And no, I haven't bothered to finish taking them apart. They're all just in here. Eventually, every so often I go through it and I clean a whole bunch of them out, sort them out, put them away. But most of the time they just sit in here. They're not bothering anybody. I keep them in this side of the design board though. And because that's what I can do when I'm working on something. I could put this down in there, and then I put this on top of it, and I put the top on it and close it up, and they're not going anywhere. They're going to stay right there. And I'll stick this thing back in here, seeing as it was in here. Might as well leave it in there. But the beads aren't going to go anywhere. And that's what I use when I'm working here at home.
One other thing that you could use quite easily in your working with beads and other projects would be a macrame project board, as you could see here. I found it very useful, for example, when making bracelets that were beaded, especially those that combined bead embroidery aspects of them, because you can anchor them down with the T-pins and stuff like that.
I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again some other day.